In this video, I am going to be discussing in further detail the preoccupied or the anxious style of attachment. I made a general video of the 4 different attachment styles that you can watch, and this video in particular is about preoccupied or anxiously attached. So attachment styles are formed in childhood and can change throughout life. So with the preoccupied, anxious, attached individuals, it is likely that maybe their parents were available but not consistently available. So maybe the mom or the dad was there, but then they would leave for an extended period of time, or maybe the parent themselves struggled with some sort of depression, and maybe they weren't fully as available to the child. So the child had periods of times when everything was fine, they were taken care of by the parent, and then the parents would go into some form of a dip, whether they were absent or maybe they had some form of emotional states of their own, when the child would feel that they're not safe. And in that state of child feeling that they're not safe, they would get emotionally and physically very, very aroused. So their nervous system was out of whack, and so that is at an early stage is usually what causes an anxious preoccupied attachment. It could also be that you have been in relationships that were less than kind. Maybe your partner cheated on you, or maybe, even the very first relationship that you got involved with, maybe it could have been with somebody very volatile, or maybe someone, tried to kind of lower your self-esteem or one way or another. Another reason this could have occurred is maybe there was a death in the family. Maybe someone passed away, somebody that you really cared about, and that was a very traumatic experience that you had a hard time overcoming, or your anxious attached partner had a hard time overcoming, if you're watching the video to learn more about the style and it's not your own. So what happens is the person that is anxiously attached begins to feel the sense of anxiety in relationships as well, or even not being in a relationship and trying to be in a relationship. There is a frequent sense of anxiety. Also, people with anxious, preoccupied attachments in relationships, they tend to experience a lot of sadness, a lot of kind of negative emotions, a lot of, once again, anxiety within the relationships, tend to become very depressed. And these folks, they kind of have this feeling about themselves that maybe they're not deserving of relationships. Maybe there's something wrong with them. Maybe they're somehow very flawed. But at the same time, they really want relationships. And sometimes they can feel like there's kind of like a hole inside of them, maybe like something is missing, and they want other people to come in and fill that hole. They feel that their sense of self-worth will come from other people. And that's, by the way, a very, very normal feeling. Your sense of self-worth isn't just completely derived by itself from yourself. It is also very much mirrored by the people around you. So no matter how good you feel about yourself to begin from, if you're going to be in an environment of people that are going to put you down, or if you're going to have a partner that's not very sensitive and is going to kind of put you down, your sense of self-worth will also diminish, no matter what attachment style you belong in, what category you belong in. So our sense of worth is both. It's both the way that we kind of experience other people experiencing us, as well as what we fundamentally, eternally believe about ourselves. So people with this attachment style are more likely to have a very harsh critical voice, maybe a lower self-esteem. They might feel that they're fundamentally not good enough. Sometimes people feel like, I'm not good enough right now, but I'm working towards changing myself, and I will be good enough in a relationship. for a relationship someday. So people with this attachment style sometimes spend their entire life trying to make themselves worthy, good enough of a relationship. Instead of actually being in a relationship and enjoying the relationship, they're always thinking about, how do I make myself better so that I can be in a relationship, so that I can be lovable, so that I can attract this partner that I really want. And sometimes they get trapped in this trap of performing. So they can even pick jobs that are like sexy, that kind of, from their perspective, give them a higher, sense of worth, a higher value. They think, oh, if I get this job, or if I do this, then I'm going to become more interesting, and then I'm going to attract a partner. And with the anxious style, these people, they really want a relationship. Once again, they might feel like there's a little hole inside of them. And so if somebody comes into their life and they can prove to the world that they now have a partner, or somebody is going to make them, they think somebody is going to make them feel better about themselves, and then that hole is going to be filled. Also, people with this attachment style, sometimes because they don't feel fully whole, they feel that they're lacking something. That high sense of anxiety can create some negative coping strategies, such as drinking too much alcohol, or being very promiscuous, eating too much food, things like that, kind of like to make themselves feel better, because there's a high sense of anxiety about who you are, and if you're worthy enough for any kind of love, any kind of a relationship. So in relationships, you have to remember that a lot of these people were kind of abandoned as children, right? So they don't feel very safe. So in a relationship, they want to make sure that they are safe. And sometimes they create these ways of behaving, create these ways of being that actually destructs a relationship. But all they're looking for is safety. So, for example, an anxiously attached person might be very jealous. They have a low sense of their self-worth, so they think their partner is probably always on the lookout for somebody better. Somebody better is going to come across and steal their partner away, and their partner is going to be going to disappear out of their lives. So they build this hypervigilance to make sure that nobody does that. And sometimes they do things like, go through and check their partner's phone. But what they're looking for is just safety. They want to check the partner's phone, make sure that nobody, their partner isn't texting them, isn't talking to other wonderful singles out there, and is faithful. But that, of course, can cause the partner to feel like their partner doesn't trust them, and that was a violation of privacy, and so that can disrupt the relationship. It can be very damaging to the relationship. Also, the anxious partner, they sometimes tend to want for their partner to text them immediately, or to call them right away. And if they don't get the text, if they don't get the call, they immediately feel like their partner doesn't love them, doesn't care about them. And so they're always looking for all these potential rejections. And what they use are 3 methods to actually keep themselves kind of stuck in this anxious trap. And the 3 methods are selective attention, selective memory, and selective interpretation. So the selective attention piece is kind of, they're always looking to justify from the world their low sense of worth. So they don't feel very good about themselves. They feel like maybe they're unworthy of love. They might not be a good enough partner, and they might not be interesting enough, attractive enough, successful enough to keep anybody around. Everybody's going to be with them, is eventually going to leave them. And so they use this method of selective attention to look for all the cues that actually justify these thoughts. and they're going to, pay attention to the conversations that other people have. Other relationships where they can put themselves in the place of the other person in a relationship and find kind of common ground. So for example, an anxiously attached woman is going to look to the failed relationships of her friends, maybe her girlfriends, and she's going to assume that almost something very similar is going to happen to her as well. She was going to put herself in kind of like in their shoes, and that will be the selective attention that will tell her, like, we're not worthy enough for the relationships. Then the second one, the selective memory. So the preoccupied is in a relationship, and every single feedback that their partner gave them, maybe like their partner criticized them a little bit, that is what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember the 100 compliments, the 100 things that their partner told them about them. They're going to remember the one or the two things their partner has said that may have been critical, or maybe that have to do with them leaving the relationship. So maybe their partner thought somebody else was attractive, for example. And the anxious is going to focus on that. And that is going to become the focus, the attention, and the memory that they're going to retain. And that is what's going to remain in the preoccupied mind. Like, aha, I knew that. I knew this would happen. And then that's like, get stuck on that. Everything else that was good, forget about it. That's like irrelevant. And the third is selective interpretation. So the way that they interpret what people say, maybe their partner says, things about their relationship, that once again solidifies the belief that they are unlovable and unworthy. And so with the preoccupied attachment, the person can really get stuck in two kinds of relationships. One is they're going to find the person that confirms their view about them being unlovable and unworthy. And even though the relationship is going to feel bad, it's at least going to be familiar. It's all going to make sense to the person. It's going to make sense to the person why maybe their partner doesn't want to commit, or why they might not be kind to them. They might be telling them things that are not very nice about them. They might be constantly trying to escape the relationship in one way or another. So it's not going to feel good, but at least it's going to be comfortable. And so the preoccupied can actually, spend their entire life in these kind of cycles, either with one person or with multiple relationships. The other option is if the person actually meets a partner that really loves them, really cares for them, tells them they love them all the time, does nice things, is romantic, is really there, very, solid. The anxiously attached is going to get very confused. It's a cognitive dissonance. Like, I thought that I was very, unlovable and unworthy, and this person, for some reason, doesn't see it. How can they not see what I see? Or they might think that if they really got to know me, they wouldn't want to be with me. So then they're anxious about maintaining a certain facade, a certain persona. Or if they got to know them, they're going to be like, why does this person not see what I see? They're just absolutely ridiculous. And so they're going to build stories. There's going to be too much anxiety in this cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a really, it's a very anxious thing if you've ever experienced it. It really causes a lot of neuroses. So the person is going to start ruminating and coming up with all the reasons why their partner is with them. And those reasons are going to be speaking negatively about, the preoccupied person themselves. The person is never going to be like, oh my God, this other partner, we're actually a really good match. It's like, I'm actually a great person. And this person sees how wonderful I am, and here we are enjoying the relationship together. No. They're going to come up with any story possible to explain why this partner is, absolutely crazy for wanting to be with them in the first place. They just, in their mind, it's just not going to click. It's not going to make any sense of why this person wants to be with me. And so it's very difficult to have this attachment style, and it can really lead to, also just getting physically sick, catching colds. Being this level of anxious all the time is so hard to carry, and constantly feeling unsafe, constantly feeling a sense of fear at the bottom of it, constantly feeling like either your partner is going to leave you or you're never going to find a partner, and you're unworthy and unlovable. That's just causing a lot of physical damage to your personal being, and so they can cause colds and all forms of illnesses, because the body is in a constant state of kind of flight or flight, constant state of anxiety. And so to change that, first of all, if you're already in a happy relationship and you have this attachment style, but you're happy and maybe so does your partner or whatnot, then it's totally fine. But if you're experiencing relationship problems, like in your current relationship, or you've noticed that you've gone through a series of failed relationships, and there seems to be a pattern, then you can actually earn a secured attachment style. And the way that you do that is, number one, by being in a safe, trusting relationship with anyone. It could be a therapist, it could be a friend, it could be your current partner, it could be, you can find a new relationship, but to be with somebody that accepts you for who you are, somebody that you feel that you can be vulnerable with, that you can be open with about, kind of your deepest, darkest secrets, your thoughts, your insecurities, and being in a relationship with that person for an extended period of time will help you gain a better insight, and will help you feel more secure, because if you're going to spend an extended period of time with someone that really listens to you and really accepts you, that in itself is already a great gift. That in itself is going to start changing those neural pathways in your brain. Someone that's not critical of you, that's very supportive of whatever it is that you're doing in life, that's going to start changing those patterns in you in itself. And the second is, you need to work on yourself. So, the one thing is knowing your thoughts, knowing the kind of thoughts that actually create these negative emotions, then these negative ways of being. And the best way to do that is by journaling and asking yourself a lot of questions about challenging your beliefs. Are you really that unworthy? Are you really that horrible of a partner? Are you really that unlovable, or is there something about you that is lovable? The one thing also that anxious people tend to do is they tend to downplay what's good about them and really magnify everything that's bad about them, their flaws. They're going to magnify their flaws. They're going to focus exactly on that. And the great things about them, they're just going to dismiss, like it's just no big deal. And so also kind of switching that and, outlining, oh yeah, what is good about me? What is positive? What are the things that I can be proud of? What are the things maybe other people have said are good about me, and actually believing what was said about you. And then looking at the thoughts that are negative about yourself and attaching them to being anxiously attached or having low self-esteem. So your thoughts are not going to go away. Your negative thoughts about you are not going anywhere. They're going to be there. But the one thing that you can do is you can take those negative thoughts when they come and they tell you, oh, you're not good enough. Nobody's really going to like you. He doesn't really like you, or she doesn't really care for you that much. This is some form of an illusion. Something strange is going on here. So when these thoughts appear in your mind, you can box them and say, oh, yeah, these are these anxious thoughts. These are these thoughts that have to do with my low self-esteem, that have to do with my anxious attachment style. Here are these thoughts. Here they are again. There we go. There we go. Here they are. And so the more you recognize it, the more you kind of accept these thoughts and accept that, unfortunately, these thoughts are a result of just being maybe in traumatic relationships or having grown up the way that you've grown up. But these thoughts are harmful to you. And they're not going to, if you act on them, they're not going to create better relationships. They're not going to make you happier. They're not going to make you better, actually, either. And so at least just knowing what these thoughts are and being able to recognize them when they come is already going to help a lot. And now the thing about the thoughts and feelings, our brain is not exactly set up in a way, change your thought, change your emotion. It's actually much more complex than that. When you think about, would you be able to unlove someone who you love, right? Probably not. You might not be with that person. You might use your willpower not to, contact them or engage in a further relationship with them. You can do that, definitely. But you are not going to be able to talk yourself or think yourself out of love, right? So same thing with some of these negative emotions. You're not going to be able to exactly, or feelings about yourself, those emotional feeling states. You're not going to be able to change them just because you change your thoughts. You can help it, and over time it will change over a long period of time. But there are also other techniques like body-based techniques, body-based exercises, generally changing lifestyle type of radical changes that can help you jump from being very insecure, having low self-esteem, having negative relationships, to really changing the feeling state about yourself. Because if you're constantly sad, you're constantly anxious, you're constantly worried about something, constantly sad, just changing those thoughts is going to help over a long period of time. But there is some deeper, more physical and lifestyle changes that you really are going to need to commit to in order for you to find yourself on the other side. And subscribe to this channel, because I'm going to be making more videos outlining all the different attachment styles, and then what to do about them, and the difference between the emotional states and these thinking ways of being. Also, make sure to check out my workshop. It's for adult children of alcoholics. If you've grown up in a family where maybe drugs or alcohol was abused, it's an 8-week program. And if you're interested in getting coaching with me, you can also find a link below to sign up for a consultation for that as well. And stay tuned, and I hope you're having a great week.